It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the 13th Urban Mobility India Conference 2020. This session is on challenges associated with urban bus systems in India. The moderator for the session is Sri Abhijit Sarkar. Once Sri Abhijit Sarkar will join us, briefly I'll introduce him. Sri Abhijit Sarkar is an independent consultant, Mott MacDonald Private Limited. His engagement with the transportation sector is of over 22 years, with lead roles in projects in India and abroad, including rollout and operations oversight of India's first cross-cost model PPP city wide bus service operating in National Capital Territory of Delhi. Joining us for the day, the panelists include Sri Shivayogi C. Kalasad, Managing Director, Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation. Sri Shivayogi C. Kalasad is currently the Managing Director, KSRTC, the pioneer road transport corporation in India, which is presently serving 3 million commuters with 8,700 buses in rural and urban areas. Mr. Kalasad has a distinguished academic record with BTech from National Institute of Technology, Surathkal, and an executive MBA from Oxford University and University of Warwick, UK. I may welcome sir for being panelists for the session. Also joining us for the session today will be Mr. Arun Bothra, Managing Director, Capital Region Urban Transport and Chairman cum Managing Director of Odisha State Road Transport Corporation. Mr. Arun Bothra has served as an IPS officer for more than 20 years in Odisha cadre. Currently, he is serving as Managing Director, CRUT, and Chairman cum Managing Director of Odisha State Road Transport Corporation. Under his strong leadership and determination, CRUT has achieved multiple revenue and ridership targets within a year of its establishment. Mr. Arun Bothra will be joining us shortly. Moving on to our next presenter, Sri Prasanna Patwardhan. Sri Prasanna Patwardhan is currently the Chairperson and Managing Director at the Prasanna Group. What started as a small transport company with 4 taxis in 1964 is today a giant in the transport sector with a turnover of around rupees 300 crore. Prasanna Purple Mobility Solutions Private Limited, popularly known by its brand name Prasanna Purple, today has a fleet of over 1,200 buses and cars in 85 cities across India, of which the company owns over 700 buses. Shri Prasanna Patwardhan has been instrumental in introducing new activities with integrated technology in the field of passenger and goods transportation, domestic, international tours, and travel and highway restaurants and motels. I may welcome Shri Prasanna Patwardhan for the session today. Moving on to our next presenter, it will be Dr. Sandeep Gandhi. Dr. Sandeep Gandhi is a sustainable mobility expert with over 22 years of experience. During this time, he has worked extensively on research, planning, design, and development of non-motorized public transport and urban freight infrastructure, as well as operations in multiple cities across India. His association in the field includes government bodies, private sector, development sector, academic and research institutes. He has not only worked on large public and non-motorized transport projects, including one of the first BRT and NMT projects in the country. I may welcome Dr. Sandeep Gandhi on behalf of UMI team for the UMI 2020. Joining us on the panel today is Professor Paulos N. Kuriakose. Professor Paulos is an urban geographer. He holds a postgraduate degree in geography from the University of Kerala and earned another post-graduation in urban and regional planning from CEPT University, Ahmedabad. He was awarded the coveted Commonwealth Scholarship by Commonwealth Scholarship Commission to study Masters in Transport Planning from University of Leeds, the UK in 2014. So just briefly taking you through the session would be as follows. So there would be a brief remarks by our moderator, followed by a presentation by the distinguished speakers. I request all the speakers to present their presentations within the time limit of 10 minutes, as it is a time-bound session. I may request that individually a timeline may be maintained by each of the presenters. The moderator shall intimate the speakers 2 minutes prior to closure time. All the panelists are requested to put your mic on mute. You may unmute your mic when you are required to speak. Now we'll move on to our presentations. I may request MD KSRTC to please share their presentation along with all the panelists.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Ankit and my co-panelists. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. I can very well hear to you. I may request rest of the panelists please confirm the same.
Yeah, we can hear you. I can hear you. Yeah.
I can hear you. Thank you. Thank you. So can I begin now?
Yeah.
Thank you very much for the wonderful occasion of responsibility given to this panel. Very important subject of challenges being faced by the city bus services and the roadmap for its expansion. I am Shivayogi Kalsad, the Managing Director of Karnataka State Road Transport Corporation. I am joined by a very illustrious panelists who are also part of the private operators as well as from the market. So I would rather restrict my talk on the subject of Karnataka State with specifics to the city services being operated in the KSRTC. Just to give a brief intro of the KSRTC, it is founded way back in 1948. It started as a Mysore government road transport department. Later on, it was independent corporation on the 1st of August 1961 as MSRTC. It finally became as KSRTC in the year 1973. There was a bifurcation of the entire corporation into 4 different entities like KSRTC, the city-based BMTC, the Northeastern KSRTC and Northwestern RTC way back in 1997. Presently, the KSRTC operates almost to the 92% of the villages in the state of Karnataka. Presently, we have in the KSRTC 14 cities are being serviced, flying the 2-tier towns of KSRTC. I'm not specifically touching upon Bangalore per se because it is on the purview of the BMTC, but generally I can speak about the tier 2 cities which is presently being serviced by our own KSRTC. Just to take a case study of the Mysore City Transport Division. Mysore is, as most of you by now know, it's one of the most heritage city. It's a million-plus city. It's a tourist hub and also the industrial and IT hub also of the country. Mysore City Transport Division is the exclusive city service which has been operating in the division of KSRTC, formed way back in 2009 to provide safe, efficient and economical transportation services to the public. The city has 4 depots with 447 fleet strength, including 36 premier Volvo city buses. The details are given to understand, and presently the KSRTC has introduced the ITS project in Mysore City Transportation, Intelligent Transport System, which is basically allowing the real-time monitoring and tracking of vehicles, which was planned for about 500 buses with 105 bus stops and 6 bus terminals having about 45 platforms. And I must say here that Mysore was the first successful project implemented in the whole of country in the citywide operations. This includes the passenger information system of ETS and also having the GPS-enabled system of operations. The ITS basically addresses the critical issue of the road congestion by offering the state-of-art technologies, giving the attractive and convenient and also the comfortable value-added services, basically to encourage the use of bus services against the individual personal vehicles. I must also add that KSRTC has recently started the flybus operations from Bangalore Airport to Mysore City. It gives a similar kind of travel experience. Just to give the present status, as everybody knows, in the pandemic challenges we are having in the last 8 to 9 months, just to give this present context of what is happening in the COVID, the statistics of the revenue mobilization in the months April to October, you can see the daily revenue, it has come down from the previous years of 33 crores to just 7 crores. This is the cumulative figures. And obviously, we are under a huge loss. But that should not deter us. Obviously, the city operations will always undergo a huge challenges. And coming to the challenges, as everybody knows, the road length or road infrastructure in the urbanization sector is not matching up with the exponential growth of the vehicle on the urban sector. So there's always the lesser road width, the lesser road length when compared to the number of vehicles which is being bombarded in the cities. Just to quote an example, city of Bangalore has the highest number of two-wheelers in the entire world. We have the highest vehicle population, and the vehicle population of buses is minuscule when compared to the other vehicles. So the challenges are obvious, the huge road congestion and leading to huge traffic congestion. And presently the existing vehicle, we have a less vehicle utilization. And though we are obligated to operate the schedules, though it is uneconomical, we are bound to operate because we are in the public sector. And there's a huge cost of operation, which also involves the higher staff cost, being the working in the urban areas. Then we also have a frequent operation of the three-wheeler vehicles which are carrying more people beyond the capacity, which obviously give the first and last mile connectivity advantages. But there are safety concerns, there are regulatory concerns, etc. This becomes definitely challenges for STUs which are operated basically on a regulatory mechanism. The most important thing is the app-based two-wheeler and four-wheeler services which are being now provided by the aggregators, which is obviously acting like a huge challenges for the operation of the STU in the city-based buses. The share of buses obviously is very negligible in most of the Indian states as compared to the personalized vehicles. Study always reveals that the two-wheelers and the bicycles are obviously on the high. As I have already mentioned that the traffic congestion has really added to vehicle speed of less than 10 kilometers per hour in the CBD area. And we know that this huge energy consumption because of two-wheelers and three-wheelers has really acted very detrimental to the environment also. And also it increased the high rate of road accidents, which is basically coming to something like more than 50% of traffic fatalities are due to the pedestrian. And we also, as the buses are required to pay a very high claim of compensation. These are all financial challenges, and we are required to overcome these challenges also. Obviously, the more funding is required from the government sector, maybe from the market, from the informal sector, etc. So to ensure to discourage the passengers to use personalized or the private transport, because the bus transportation obviously is not only the favorable in terms of energy efficiency, but also for its best use of road. And during the present context of a pandemic, the added challenges, I must say, are because of the lack of passengers. There's still a stigma to travel in the public buses. There's still no social gathering issues are still there. The schools and colleges have still remained closed. They have not started opened in many of the cities. Then the work from home concept is still largely in vogue. I think this is here to stay now. The tourism and the pilgrimages are stopped. There's increased in personalized transportation. There's increase in the NMT. There's a reduced casual contract operations. Crew are still hesitant to work due to fear of COVID. And some of the issues of added challenges are also continued. We hope that these challenges will be overcome once the pandemic comes to control. So what is the roadmap for these kind of issues of city-based traffic? As we understand, obviously we have to focus on the public transport, particularly the bus transport. We know the advantages of bus transport. It has the lowest external cost. If it could be integrated with promoting rail-based transport system in high-density corridors, and by focusing on the bus transport not only in the city but also in rural and semi-rural areas, that will do a good thing. Then the other important from the external point of view, it could be the restructuring tax policy to promote the bus transport. There is a huge area of taxation. It could be motor vehicle tax, the toll tax, the GST, the excise, not only on the bus but also on the parts, the chassis, the diesel on which we are paying the excise duty, etc. This is a huge taxation which I think the government may have to think considerably on this. Further, this need for restructuring of the STOs. How do we do it? By rationalizing the fare, probably adopting robust automatic fare revision formula, by optimizing the scale of operations, by introducing different variety of services, improving the passenger information system, etc., etc. These are some of the, by focusing some of these areas, I think they could have a better way forward. Some of the other issues on which we can focus would be on productivity enhancement measures, which is internally, for example, by reducing the staff to bus ratio. We operate on something like 4.5, 4.5 to 5 in some areas. In some of the northern Indian states, it's something like 8 to 9. So how do we reduce that? Increasing bus utilization, optimizing the route operations, etc. Use of smaller bus capacity, etc. These are some of the issues. Obviously, by introduction of electric buses also could be one of the major issues. Finally, I would like to conclude by having a supply side management and demand side management measures also could be of major use, and integrating the IPD with mass public transportation system also could be of some use to us. How do we benefit through the implementation of ITS? That is already I've quoted the example of Mysore. Mysore is one of the glaring example how it could be utilized. Maybe other cities with less than million population could also bring in this kind of issues which we can take forward. Maybe the government of India can bring in more such proactive measures to ensure that city-based operations can not only be sustainable but also in the long run help the environment and also help the traveling public and give the better travel experience. I'll end my small talk here and I'll be open for Q&A at a later stage. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Patwardhan, please come in with your presentation. I've been through your presentation. It's an excellent conspectus of the challenges faced by public transport and bus transport in our cities. Please go ahead.
You have to allow me to unmute.
I have done so, sir.
Okay. Sharing also, when I click that button, how do I do my sharing?
I have given you the right, sir. It should work now.
It's not allowing me to share. So just instruct me once I click that button, then what? Nothing is coming up.
I will just switch on. Should I switch on your presentation from my end, sir?
Yeah, there are some little changes. So if you allow me to do that, that would be better. Because I have.
I will just try it once more, sir. So I have already made you the presenter.
I'm saying share, but it is not moving. Nothing is happening. If it is taking time, then you can share.
I will just share it from you.
There are not much of a change. There is little change. But anyway, I will go with the presentation.
I will switch on from my end, and
Yes,
perhaps
sure.
wherever there is a change, you can just tell me.
So thank you, Mr. Sarkar, for giving me this time. It's always pleasure to be at the UMI. This is, I think, our 10th year. So I'm happy to be here. So can you change the slide?
Yes, sir.
So when I say change, you can change, right?
Right, sir.
Okay. So first thing which I always talk about is we need to look at what we have done in the past. And National Urban Transport Policy is the excellent document. I can say this with a lot of confidence because I have gone through policies of multiple countries. But there is an issue in having synchronized working with regulations and execution. So policy has no connection to regulation and regulation has no connection to execution because there are no enough guidelines on or standard operating procedure on how to execute. Next. So I would have, since all of you must be knowing about this policy, I'm not going line by line there, but whatever I'm talking going forward is almost on the similar lines. So first challenge is of integration, and it starts from first is low awareness on integrated public transport. The importance of integrated public transport is not understood well, and that is why we are unable to provide door-to-door services. Coordination between different ministries itself is a challenge today. MOA, MORTH, DHI, NITI Aayog. So there are different agencies which are working for the same purpose, but they are not uniformly directed in one direction. Then, of course, follow-up is absent of integrated planning and administrative institutions, which is required. And at the institutions which are there, their ability to plan and manage services is very poor. So particularly if you look at urban transport, it is actually no one's baby. So regulation is made by MORTH, schemes are made by MOA, DHI, NITI Aayog. State UD ministry makes some of the rules and planning also, or I would say in many of the states, no planning. It is regulated by RTA or RTO. Traffic is controlled by traffic police. Town Planning Authority defines where to give land and what to land where and whom to give land. So there is shortage of land everywhere. In a place like Delhi, you are unable to introduce more buses because there is no land available for depot. Services are expected to be funded by and managed by ULB, but it is not mandatory. So STUs are responsible for operations having no funds. That is the reality today. So next. Then if we move forward, Motor Vehicle Act is outdated and it is limited to vehicle regulation, and it has nothing to do with actually mobility of the people. It is, since it is in concurrent list, operating rules state by state are different. And in city also, as I said, it is not mandatory to provide public transport. So it doesn't matter whether you provide or do not provide. Rules are not aligned to people mobility. There is lack of coordination between different operators also. Metro is working in silo, railway is working in silo. In urban rail, it is not connected to metro, even Mumbai. Metro is not connected to buses. Outside bus stop, there is no place for auto rickshaws or LPT to connect to bus stands or BRTS. So there is lack of coordination between operators also. There is no seamless data transfer from one operator to other. And that is why door-to-door mobility becomes very, very difficult. Physical infrastructure also is a serious challenge. And fares and fare revision, both are challenging. Fares are low for obvious reasons because our country actually requires low fares. But those are not viable fares. And that is why most of the STUs and even private operators are bleeding. And fare revision is dependent on political equations, so that is not happening for even 10 years. And when traffic is planned by city authorities or traffic police, priority is always given to personal vehicles than public transport vehicles. So first vehicle which is being banned in any congested area is bus. Because it looks bigger in size. We have tendency to actually calculate space on the vehicle, space occupied on the basis of vehicles and not on the basis of number of people it carries. Per person road space is not calculated, per vehicle road space is calculated, and that is why bus is the first vehicle which is banned in going into any congested area. And there is no specific long-term provision in budgeting to ensure that sustainable mobility solutions are provided. Government also comes up with grants. Those are one-time grants. And then what happens after that grant? Everybody knows about JNNRM or even now electric buses. Next. So in public-private partnership, I'll come specifically to public-private partnership because I represent that side. Most of the concession agreements are one-sided and lopsided. So essence of partnership is completely missing. In some places, I'm very saddened to say this, where it is PPP is PPE. So it is enmity more than partnership. Non-adherence of terms and conditions by STUs or ULB is a normal routine because payments are not made on time, but services delivered are as per expected, otherwise there are fines levied. In selecting operator today, particularly in electric buses, more weightage is given to financial ability of the operator rather than technical capability of the operator. And this is very harmful in terms of long-term plan. So unless you have good operator who is capable of managing that service, however large amount of money he may have, you will not get good quality service. Lack of readiness of infrastructure is also common throughout the country. And poor understanding about usage of technology. Many places you will find good technologies being used, but how to use it, what is the use of it, and ultimately technology should enhance your quality and technology should not get you only fines. So unless that quality is achieved, keeping fining that operator with the help of technology doesn't help. So technology should be used to improve quality, improve reliability, and improve overall experience of the traveling public. So that also needs to be understood correctly. Many of the places routes are changed suddenly, so there is no availability of depot space at other place, and then service starts deteriorating. Cost escalation formulas are linked to CPI, WPI, which has actually no connection to whatever costing we do. Our main costing is manpower and fuel. Manpower costing is dependent on minimum wages, and fuel is dependent on, of course, external factors. And even spare parts, they are not really linked to WPI or CPI. Tire cost rise or any other spare part cost going up or down has very less relation to CPI and WPI. And most of the contracts are connected to CPI and WPI, which is making it very, very difficult to even survive. Delayed payments is rampant. 15 days is paid, but normally 2 to 3 months are taken for payment to be delivered. And for obvious reason, because STUs are also in loss, so they are dependent on government to get money. Government doesn't give them money because there is no budgetary provision. So this is all into cycle. So unless we have budgetary provision and something which comes beforehand going into losses, STUs also will not be improved. So you require money to keep your services provided qualitatively and not to fill up the gap between cost and income and expenditure, because that is post. But before, to ensure services are provided properly, you require money in advance and not afterwards. Because of certain conditions in concession agreement, there is difficulty in raising debt and equity also. And I think that there is unreasonable demand on performance security, because most of the time operators' money is lying with the STUs or government for 2 to 3 months. That money itself is so large that there is no requirement to take additional performance security, because in any case fines and penalties are deducted from the payments which they give you. So there should not be a high level of performance security, and bank guarantee equal to subsidy, which is, I wonder, what benefit we are getting out of it, because in this case we are required to invest more money to get bank guarantee, pay more charges to get bank guarantee, and then compete for lower rates. Next. So how do we move forward? So there are certain things which I have already said, but I will just read problems. So inadequate service is mostly because of lack of planning. Poor passenger amenities because there is no budget whatsoever for building bus terminals, bus stops, or whatever passenger infrastructure is required to be provided. Poor vehicle conditions because there are no depots. STU's own buses are lying on the road, so you cannot check them, you cannot clean them. That is the situation in cities where I work. Then there are uncertain fare revisions. Sorry? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
We can hear you. I can hear you at least.
Because I am hearing some disturbances in between. Then there is high cost of funding, poor local administrative support, and outdated laws. Next. Next. So there are multiple kind of contracts. I am not going to into detail of this: gross cost, net cost, and hybrid. Similarly, asset light, asset heavy, and hybrid. Next. So I believe this is N is missing. So that is why I wanted to share different presentation. Mantra is to move people and not vehicles. So first, integration of physical infrastructure is very, very important. So infrastructure development to facilitate movement of people and not vehicles. Then pedestrian and NMT infrastructure to address last mile connectivity. I believe unless you have good footpaths and good NMT network, your city bus will not get better ridership because you are unable to walk up to your bus stop. Then you don't take buses. Bus ports and multimodal terminals, they are also absent. Then allocate land for depot and parking places at appropriate location. Appropriate location is underlined. And rest areas on highways and pick up and drop location within city. Similarly, IT integrated infrastructure is also equally important. Standardized technology platform for all modes, so there is seamless data transfer. Define IT protocols for sharing of data. Facilitate integration of information to plan journey till final fare collection. And establish control towers so that you are managing your services better. Next. So united efforts of everybody to implement NUTP 2006 are very essential. Here, I remember one advertisement which was made by Ford Motors. You can have any color as long as it is black. So I would say you can have any rule and regulation as long as it is delivering the expected results expected out of NUTP 2006. Even if you do that, everything will be sorted out. That is excellent document, and we should ensure that all our rules, regulations are aligned to this policy. So to introduce public transport subject in administrative service education is very, very important because that is the way we can catch them young and we can make officers aware about importance of public transport. Then build political consensus to adopt public transport friendly policies. So which is NUTP, I would say, to get public transport services categorized as priority sector. Today it is not priority. So whenever only in emergency it becomes priority, otherwise it is not priority sector. Then to develop right legislative framework to promote integrated public transport, to define uniform operating guidelines for level playing field, to reduce taxes and levies on public transport to nil. Today, if you look at the taxation, we pay almost 35 to 40% of our revenue on taxation, out of which diesel contributes the much, then GST on buying vehicles, spare parts, in air-conditioned vehicle, also from passenger, we collect GST. Apart from that, you have tolls at some places, then road tax, then motor vehicle tax. So there are so many taxes. So 30 to 40% of your revenue is going only towards payment of taxes. So that has to be reduced. In many countries, when you say we are paying taxes on our buses, people laugh at us.
Mr. Patwardhan, 1.5 minutes to go.
Sure. This is probably my last slide. To allocate sufficient funds to next 10 years to promote sustainable mobility, it has to be a long-term planning. And to do that, we need planning and monitoring authority at state, local level, which is UMTA, state level and national level. Infrastructure Development Authority under the same authority to develop public transport related infrastructure and not only roads, because there are a lot of things which you require to strengthen public transport. It is not only roads. 90% of the people, for them, road is nothing. They require public transport infrastructure to go from place A to place B. Then establish training and skill development schools across India and research institute to promote innovative people mobility solutions. Next. And this is what I think is most important. We should have integrated transport management throughout the country, and that is the only way to take away people's two-wheeler or four-wheelers from them, so they willingly come and board public transport, buses or trains or metros or whatever. Thank you very much for giving me time. I think I have finished my presentation within time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patwardhan, for your very, very comprehensive presentation, especially when you have talked about the brick and mortar issues in the operating environment. Now, we have been looking forward to Mr. Arun Bothra's presentation on the capital region urban transport bus system. He has worked to evolve it into its present position. Mr. Bothra, thank you for joining. Please, may I request you to start your presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Sakar. Am I audible and visible also?
Visible. You are very, very visible. Yes.
Okay. Can somebody allow me to share the presentation, because I have logged in with two systems. One is my computer, one is my mobile, because there was some problem with the video. Can you please allow me to share the presentation, or somebody can run from your side also? There's no problem. Mr. Sarkar, can somebody help me?
Yes. They have already heard your request. They're working on it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. So we go to next slide quickly. This is the presentation plan, introduction, beginning, role of CRUIT, role of private operators, role of RCA, benefit. I'll be talking about all these points. Next, please. Yeah. So CRUIT is a very young company. We have just celebrated our second anniversary on 6th of November. Very, very young company. We have a very small fleet of 200 buses, which we work on gross cost model in PPP, gross cost PPP model. And I'm very happy to share with all of you that it's a very, very beloved company of the area. People really love our buses. It has emerged as a brand, and last 2 years we have won 2 national awards also. So it's a young company and very successful company so far. A very small introduction about Bhubaneswar. We have this is the population you can see. Then Bhubaneswar, as you know, capital city of Odisha. We have the Golden Triangle, Puri, Konark. It's an educational hub, and of course, one very important thing is that Bhubaneswar is a very planned, very nice, very beautiful city. But of late, we have been seeing very, very speedy rise in the vehicle registration. In fact, the city has more vehicle registration than the number of people who stay here, and there's a rapid urbanization. Next, please. Yeah, coming to CRUIT. Yeah, next. Yeah, CRUIT as the capital region urban transport. We serve in Cuttack, Bhubaneswar, Puri, and Khurda area. Our mandate was to plan and operate public transport in this area. Service provided by CRUIT is Mo bus. In Odisha, in Odia, Mo means mine. That is my bus. Electric buses, of course, we are getting now in next January, February around. And then e-rickshaw, we are already planning. Maybe we will be having some e-rickshaw also as the feeder service. Next, please. This is how we began actually. This is just to share that how this model, how we started working on it. I'll be just telling the things what we have done under this model. The theory part everybody knows about the gross cost model. What we have done, how we have learned, how we have evolved. Because as I mentioned, it's a new company. That is the only thing I'm just sharing with all the participants and the viewers here. The beginning, of course, of any venture is very important. How you start, how you begin. Any response were given to the private operators by Crude, which we actually deduct from their monthly bill. Then temporary depots were constructed immediately. Let me tell you, on the ground we had international hockey, World Cup hockey in Bhubaneswar. That was the time when this special purpose vehicle was created and in place. Very small team of people, very young team, and that's how it actually started. Temporary depots were constructed immediately. Area-based permit was given by the government. Is very, very important thing. Everybody wants to area permit is a must, because otherwise in our state we have the system of having route-based permit. Like the state transport authority, they give route-based permit, but in case of Crude, a kind of flexibility was shown, and we were given area-based permit. So today Crude decides about the routes and the area of fine, but route decide. That helps us a lot. Route and timing as well, of course. Then monitoring mechanism was created very quickly. Construction of depots as well as bus shelters. Very beautiful bus shelters were constructed in Bhubaneswar. If some of you visit, we would like to take you there and show you how beautifully they have been made. And the BQS, that rescue shelters are managed by advertisement agency, and the revenue is shared, of course, between Crude and the Bhubaneswar municipal corporation, because municipal corporation has the right on the revenue generated out of advertisement. Next, please. Roles and responsibilities of operator. See, because we have a contract there. There is a contract, a very well-defined contract. I would like to mention to all of you the contract. I tell you after the contract. Very interesting thing. I'll just tell you. When the pandemic started, our sales that time when we checked our contract, that what we are going to pay to them, we found that this is in force measure. I was key word used, quarantine, lockdown. These words have been used in that contract, and that helped me a lot to save a lot of money for the company. Somebody might have thought about these situations. So the contract has been with the private operators. Their responsibilities of all the players. Route operator is very, very clearly defined. So this is helping us a lot. Manpower arrangement is done by them. The private operator, the vehicle procurement is done by operator. Of course, soft loan, as I mentioned, has been done by Crude. Maintenance security, of course, the equipment, fuel, consumption is given by, everything is managed by the private operator. We pay them per kilometer. Per kilometer payment is made by Crude, and we, of course, we have to keep a track with our digital footprint. We have this geofencing of all our bus stops to at the regular, the designated place in a very regular manner, regular fashion. This we have to ensure that to see the service quality maintained. Otherwise, the vehicle, the maintenance activity is done by them. The operator has to pay the tax and all these things. And operation of depots, our depots, Crude has constructed depots, and two very, very beautiful modern depots are coming up. We will be maybe in the first 3 months, maybe by March, we'll be inaugurating them in Bhubaneswar. These things have been done by crude, but practically depots are used and maintained by the private operators. We have 2 operators who are having 100 buses each. One operator 100 bus, one another operator 100 bus. So these buses, we have given them 2 depots, separate depots, so they're absolute independent from each other, autonomous, and they maintain their depots and the system. Next, please. Role and responsibilities of RCA, that is Revenue Collection Agency. Crude, incidentally, Crude has only 2 government servants on deputation. I am from police department. I am on the role of Crude now, and one my GM. She is a state service officer. She's also from the government. So 2 of us are from the government. Rest everybody is either contractual or outsourced or managed or maintained by the private operators. So this RCA, Revenue Collection Agency, they give us the bus guides that we conductors, actually we call them bus guides. Similarly, drivers, we don't call them drivers, we call them bus captains. So the bus guides are given by RCA agency. They collect the revenue as per the SOP which has been given by us. Very, very important factor, let me tell you, is that the recruitment of the bus conductors, that is bus guides, is done by the agency, but Crude has a major role in that, because we know that if you have bad element, we are going to suffer. We will bleed. So of course we have a system of penalizing the RCA for any kind of ticketing, fault, pilferage. But from the very beginning, we ensure that the conductors are recruited as per our satisfaction and with our active involvement. Next, please.
We are left with 1.5 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. Roles and responsibility of Crude: route planning, service optimization, time scheduling, monitoring of service quality, then technical development. The last 2 things I would like to mention are training part. We get them trained, all the conductors, drivers, on a regular basis. In fact, the induction training is of 14 days, which is done by Tata on the private company, but they work with us, and we have a very strong communication and marketing cell which has great social media presence. Next, please. This is just the same thing which I have told. Next. Journey so far has been very good. As I mentioned, all these things are there. The pilferage, how to solve the pilferage, permanent depot construction, constant feedback from the passengers, as I was mentioning about the communication and marketing cell, and the media cell, which takes care of a lot of issues from the public grievances. Next, please. Issues with PPP model. This is almost the last. Government has to subsidize very heavily, of course. We have bridged the gap quite a lot, but still the subsidy is quite heavy. Ticketing is an issue, as I mentioned, that sometimes pilferage still take place. Mobile app we have, but that we are having some problem. Resistance on private player who are already on the road. The resistance, of course, we with the government support could overcome, but this is one very important thing. Lastly, the PPP model is not only kind of controlling the private operator. We are actually, I'm happy to share, we actually work like a team. And next slide, please, where I will be able to show that how this during pandemic, this is my last slide. During pandemic, there was no system of loading this money, this expenditure of sanitization and everything on the operator. But still they came forward and they helped us in sanitizing every bus, spending extra money, and ensuring all these pandemic-related measures and government guidelines. Thank you so much.
Mr. Bothra, it's been a very, very comprehensive presentation of how you have evolved your business and how you have also faced up to the complex challenges. Thank you very much. Now we would like Dr. Sandeep Gandhi to make his presentation, which is, as far as I've been able to understand, based on a perspective planning approach to resource planning and use of quantified data, and also more importantly, he begins by telling us that there has to be a frank recognition of the challenges and that bus transport cannot pay for itself entirely. Thank you. Please, Sandeep.
Thank you, Abhijit. I'm just trying to find a method to present this. Probably, once again, my presentation will also have to be presented at your end. I'm unable to start it here.
Please upload Dr. Gandhi's presentation, and I think we follow this for the next presentations as well.
Okay, sir.
So, thank you for having me here. I will be talking about mainly in terms of challenges to meet the resource requirement for running the bus system, and I'm basically going to add numbers to a lot of presentations that have been made before me, especially Mr. Patwardhan's presentation. I mean, I wholly agree with him, and I'm sure what you see here is only going to endorse that in terms of numbers. So to begin with, I mean, I think there is no confusion now that bus systems are the most affordable form of public transport, affordable and accessible form of public transport. And we should also now what we call basically build this understanding. We should accept this as a fact that even when this bus system is a very cheap form of public transport, it is affordable for the government, and but to make it affordable for people, we have to include some subsidies. So there will have to be some form of state support even to operate the buses in the city. And I think more or less policy makers, planners and practitioners, everybody is getting more or less comfortable with this idea of and accepting that there will be some subsidies involved. The question is, what is that number? Do we have a fix on that number so that we can do a long-term planning on what the budget should be, how much should we allocate? And again, this is all that issues that Mr. Patwardhan had raised before me. So what I'm going to basically show here is that what these resource requirements are, not just in terms of budget to run the bus systems, also in terms of buses, and also very much what is also very important is land, because to run these buses you also require land, and land is a major resource constraint in most of the cities. Next, please. So what we had done was we started this work in about 2015-16. We basically have now, since last year, this toolkit which allows estimation of resource requirements in terms of not just, as I mentioned, mainly these four resources, which is the number of buses required, land required, staffing, the manpower requirement, and the budgetary requirement over a long, on an annual basis over a 30-year period. This tool, it allows you to do that estimation both at the city level and also at an operator level. So basically, STUs make use of this tool. Next, please. So we during this period from 2016 till date, we have been able to deploy it for a number of STUs. This is the list of some of those STUs that we used this tool with, and also for a number of cities. So we did deploy this tool for about 7 cities to do an estimation of what is the resource requirement over, let's say, over the next 10 years, mainly, to have what you call to have a public transport system which meets all the requirements for the city. Next, please. So the first step to understand the requirements of a public transport system, let's say in terms of the fleet required or the number of buses required for operating a public transport system in a city, bus-based public transport system in a city, you need to understand the demand that will be there today and over the next whatever period of time that we want to plan it for, let's say for 10 years. So what we have is this kind of a relationship, and what you see is in this figure is a relationship between bus demand, which is on the y-axis, that is buses per 1,000 population, and this is for urban centers, and on the x-axis is the size of the city in terms of its population. What most practitioners and planners are basically recommending, and what is being pushed, is this red line that you see, and this red line is basically is about 0.5 buses per 1,000 population, or one bus for every 2,000 people in a city, and this is what is being pushed for as an estimator for number of buses required in the city. But what we have found is, although as an average this number looks okay if you to look at it at a national level, but this number will vary with the size of the city. So if we are looking at a city with a population of less than 1 million, you can start looking at, a more acceptable number can also be 0.3 buses per 1,000 population. But as the city size increases from 1 million to 10 million, this demand also rapidly increases and goes up to more than in excess of one bus per 1,000 population, and remains stable for about 1 to 1.5 crore or 10 to 15 million population cities, and then basically this demand reduces slightly. But whatever said and done, let's take this number as even if we take this number as 0.5 buses per 1,000 population, it's still a long way from where we are currently. So the dotted black line that you see below, the black line curve that you see below, is where we are currently. And so there's a big gap that we need to cover over this, let's assume this next decade, if we want to basically address public transport requirements. Okay, next please. Buses is one that we have spoken about. And we know that we require one bus, let's say on an average at a national level, one bus or 1.5 buses for every 2,000 people in a city. The next important requirement is the land. And we know from all the work that has been done that each bus requires about 230 to 250 square meters of land requirement, both in terms of a depot and in terms of a terminal. So both put together, this comes to about 230 to 250 square meter, or 23 to 25 hectares for every 1,000 buses added in the city. And this is a considerable number for a lot of cities which are really which really do not have enough land to, for example, Delhi. There is no land available to accommodate more buses that Delhi wants to purchase. So it's important to keep this number in mind. And then let's talk about the manpower requirement. So every 1,000 buses would need in excess of 5,000 trained personnel just to operate those buses, to maintain and operate those buses in the cities. Okay, next please. So putting these two things together, the land and the infrastructure that needs to be developed on that land in terms of number of depots required and number of terminals required, and the fleet that is required basis the demand that we have estimated, the relationships that we have built, we can estimate the budgetary requirement or the state support that would be required, and this is outside the revenue that is being earned. So this is the kind of a viability gap that needs to be provided by the state that I'm talking about. We know from a lot of data that has been collected in terms of occupancy, in terms of affordability of the fare and trip lengths in our cities, the number of kilometers that buses can do in a day in our cities. We can estimate the rough earning that you can expect from a bus, which is going to be, if you want to make it affordable, it has to be around 30 rupees a kilometer. But the cost, as we know of the buses, even the basic buses that we are running in our cities, is much more. It would be in the range of 30 to 45 rupees at the minimum per kilometer. What that really means is that we have to be ready to subsidize our bus operations in our city if we want to make it affordable to the tune of 5 to 15 rupees a kilometer. Now that allows us to estimate what is the kind of budget we should allocate in order to ensure that we provide affordable bus services in our cities. So outside of
Sandeep, 1.5 minutes more to go.
Oh, okay, sure. So outside the cost of the capital cost of the bus, one can estimate the requirement as so between 5 and 10 lakh rupees per annum per bus as the support required from the state for city buses. If you add the capital cost of the bus, depending on whether you're talking about a very basic standard high floor bus or a very high end electric bus, the overall requirement the budgetary requirement turns out to be 100 to 300 crores for every 1,000 buses in the city. Next, please. Next, please.
Next slide, please.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. So putting it together, I mean, so if we are once again talking about the next 10 years, the roadmap for next 10 years, I mean, this is the kind of exercise that we did for 7 cities. That gives you in a snapshot the kind of resources required to achieve the quality of public transport that we are talking about in these cities, in these particular cities. Next, please. Taking a cue from this and also from the understanding of how the cities are increasing in India, what the size, the population, urban population would be, we know close to 600 million would be the urban population in India by 2030. And we know the number of cities that would be there by 2030. We can estimate what would be the national resource requirement at a national level for us, urban bus systems in our country. And this is the number that I have put together using all of that information that I had collected. We would require to purchase every year around 46,000 buses. And in total, over the past few years, we have been manufacturing to the tune of around 50,000 buses in total. And this number that I'm talking about is only for urban buses. And so far we have been doing this for all buses put together, urban, non-urban, school buses, everything. Do we need to expand our manufacturing if we are talking about all the targets that we want to meet to provide a good bus-based public transport system? That's a question that we need to ask ourselves. Then the land requirement is also going to be significant, about 700 hectares put together for all the cities. We would require about 2 lakh, a minimum of 2 lakh trained personnel every year to run this kind of expanded bus system that we are talking about. And we would need a overall total budgetary support of 50,000 crores per annum over the next 10 years. That's the scale that we are talking about. And so basically, again, I mean, this reinforces the fact that if we know of these numbers, and this is sort of given that the state support has to be provided to run a good bus-based public transport system, I will agree with what Mr. Patwardhan said, that we should have what you call allocated budgets for bus systems at the state or the city level. That's the first thing that should happen. And the second thing that should happen is that we should have these long-term plans which define the land requirement and other resource requirement. And accordingly, all your city plans and master plans should very importantly take into account all these requirements and plan for, in their 10-year plans, they should allocate the land for the required land for depots and bus terminals. Thank you so much. I think that is all that I have. That's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandeep. Our last speaker, Mr. Paulos Kyriakos, his thesis is sort of compressed into a PPT, which is very candid in its title: What impedes public transport and what impedes the implementation of national urban transport policy. And he discusses the challenges, and he centers some of the challenges very interestingly: the high costs of reparking, and parking as an entitlement, how it impedes the process of provisioning public transport. Mr. Paulos.
Yeah.
Professor Paulos, are you able to share your video?
Yeah. I am unable to share my video.
I will do it for you, sir.
I mean,
yes,
no?
sir. I have done it for you. Can you see the presentation now, sir?
Yeah, it's, I think, loading. Yeah, it has come. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. And so let me start. So my, like the introduction mentioned, my topic is on what impedes the implementation of national transport policy and gaining much gain in public transport implementation. Please go to next slide. So I'll be speaking more about what are the needs of personal motor vehicle users and what have we achieved post NUTP and JNNU era, and majorly what are the urban transport challenges and some aspects on high cost of free parking, how it actually impedes some of the sustainable mobility options which we are pursuing, how it actually impedes. Please go to next slide. So when we talk about the promotion of public transport, we should put ourselves into the shoes of personal motor vehicle users and try to understand their requirements. So we all use cars and we also expect some level of door-to-door service. And second thing what we expect is there should be a kind of on-demand service availability. There are a lot of technological options that is actually coming in. And people expect a certain level of comfort in urban areas. And the fourth thing is, many a times people doesn't prefer to stand in queues to buy tickets for bus or other public transport options that we have. And there is an expectation of reaching at right time and the options related to speedy travel. And the sixth one is there should be attributes connected to personal safety and security. So these are some of the expectations from the point of view of a motor vehicle user. So when we look into, please go to next slide. So when we look into our last few years after NUTP, we have added close to 20,000 buses after in JNNU. Smart city projects have come. Amrut project is also adding money into public transport services, support infrastructure, and various metro rail facilities have also come. There are more number of metro facilities post 2002 now. So based on the numbers, if you actually see, there are a lot of cities with metro rail systems we can see now. Please go to next slide. But even after the implementation of NUTP, major aspects related to bus related transport related, public transport related aspects did not get translated into grounds. Here we can see that the number of buses available per million population. My previous presenter also presented the minimum requirements. So here we can see that Bengaluru is having 750 and rest of our cities, even though considerable amount of population is there, but still they are not meeting a minimum number of buses required. For example, people are expecting above 500 number of buses running per million population, but we don't have that. Please go to the next slide. So coming back to the challenges, I mean, I remember attending UMI Conference in 2011 in MATRA Center. Some of these things that I got in that year is still persistent. For example, lack of land use transport integration. We don't have, most of the cities do not have a proper master plan prepared. Our transit-oriented development plan policy came lately in 2017. So many of those kind of new urbanism related aspects hasn't got implemented. Then we don't have, like our first presenter pointed out, we don't have a proper multimodal integrated system working in our cities. And third thing, slow progress of technology adoption. The level of technology adoption by public transport systems, it's going at a snail's pace. And the availability of data to the public, because availability of data pushes innovation. It actually gives a lot of inputs later into the system, but that is also very slow. And we know that the institutional inadequacies. So, okay, 2006, NUTP said that there should be UMTA created, but UMTA is still a centralized system. Who is a custodian of your city? We hear that Sadiq Khan or Enrique Penalosa or maybe Ken Livingstone speaking for some of the megacities of the world. Is our mayors equipped to speak for the cities or talk about transport systems in that cities? That is a question still. And financing of urban transport. I mean, the previous presenter also mentioned that we need close to 50,000 crore rupees for getting good number of buses. But we have enough money for metro systems, and everybody loves a good metro in their state, or maybe two. There are states with two now. And generally from our mentality, we consider that parking is our birthright. So these are major challenges which I summarized. So let me go to the last aspects, how parking is our birthright. Please go to next slide. So actually, if we look into the connection between public transport ridership and parking prices, it has been proved that in various studies, there is a positive correlation existing between public transport ridership and the kind of parking charges that you levy in your city. If you actually look into Indian situation, even though NUTP talks about land value based parking pricing, we haven't implemented it in its right sense. So that actually does not help the cities to get good amount of funding, and we still wait for central government to fund considerable amount of money for buying buses. And every 5 years, after every 5 years, we wait for that. There was JNNURM, post JNNURM, there is Amrud or NUT, Amrud or smart cities. So in that way, we wait for the transfer of money that comes from central government. Please go to next slide. When we look into the parking management related aspects, there are different kinds of parking markets exist in our city. And who actually pays for parking? Do we really pay for parking? I mean, there are 53 million cities in the country. Most of them are capital cities with a lot of government employees. Do they really pay for it? What makes them not to pay for parking? Our rules and regulations are in such a way that there is a feeling that parking is free. And if you actually look into the importance of parking pricing in the average generalized cost of trip, the bottom table explains some case of Kochi city. Even though it is done for the then in connection with metro, it exposes so many things. A person who goes by, I mean, a person who wanted to go by metro after reaching the metro station, first mile connectivity by a car, will be ending up paying almost double the amount of a person who goes directly by the car. Here you can see that a person who goes by metro plus a diesel car, he will be paying 158 rupees for his trip, which is close to 25 kilometers. If you take first 5 kilometers as the access trip, and then he will end up paying almost double amount as average generalized cost of that trip. So that is one situation where we have to really intervene. Most of the cases, if we take peak hour trips, close to 70% of the trips during peak hour has work and employment related trips. But if you take work related trips, the employees always get free parking in their destinations, be it municipal corporation or be it mall. Only the visitors pays for parking in their shopping malls. Or government employees in their palatial parking areas, they get free parking. So we have to really think of, are we doing it in a right sense? There are cities in the world, they have charged even for the government employees and even for public and semi-public land users parking charges. Please go to the next slide. So that actually takes us to the discussion of what is the cost of provision. If we actually look into the typologies of parking, it actually ranges from 2 lakh rupees per ECS to more than 1 million rupees for providing a free parking. But do we really collect that back into our kitty? No, it doesn't come back to us. It says that the contribution of parking charges to municipal corporation revenue is very meager. The right table actually says it is less than 1%. But there are developed parts of the world actually utilize that money and build infrastructures, especially ring-fence the amount for creating public transport infrastructure. Please go to next slide. And the last point that I would like to discuss is, okay, these are all existing challenges. Now we are entering into another domain of scenario. my first speaker has already pointed out, there are challenges because of the shared mobility. Is it actually a challenge or is it actually an opportunity? That is that we need to decide, because public transport agencies have to ask the right questions. Please go to the next slide. The questions that we need to ask: will I have the right to exist? Because there are a lot of autonomous vehicles and shared mobility is coming. How can I keep the customer in interface and avoid being pushed into the role of a mere carrier? And next question is, how can I win the race against car? Because car is moving away from a personal mobility to a shared mobility. In mass, people are expecting a lot of integration of various types of modes, and people are going to buy packages, and car is going to play, or smaller modes are going to play a major role. And the next question is, have I done all my homework on conventional levels? So that also we need to study in detail. And the last question
is another 2 minutes at the moment.
Yeah, I'll be done in a minute. Okay. So the last question we should be asking is, how can I leverage my assets commercially to become more independent financially? So these are all in the context of larger mass as a service provider, mobility as a service provider in connection with the existing technology-based, disruptive technology-based facilities. We should be reinventing ourselves, especially public transport systems. Please go to next slide. This is an example of a case study from India. Here we can see that there are many number of app-based mobility services working in Bangalore. That includes information providers, planning, and it actually helps to book tickets, make payments, and assist in terms of decision making. How are we incorporating and working in this environment? That is what we should be asking to enter into a different era of public transport provision in the context of mobility as a service. Thank you.
Much for this very, very enlightening discussion. Now we move on to the question and answer session. There is one question which is addressed to, in fact, there are two questions addressed to all panelists. The first question is, I'll ask the questions and I would request the panelists to give their responses, and then I'll move on to the next. The first question is around the digital divide. The question runs like this: smartphone access and use is a concern for resource-poor women. What are alternative solutions so that they can also avail information on the expected time of arrival of buses, especially during this challenging time of pandemic?
Yeah, if it is basically the usage of the display boards in bus stop is already available. The messages are being sent to the basic mobile phone, so in the SMS format, which is free of charge. And also we have the voice announcement system in Vogue, and the reliable bus operation obviously ensures that the ETA is more practical, and the real time is mentioned in the PIS boards.
Mr. Patwardhan, any
without smartphone, I think SMS reply would be the fastest, because normal phone also can get SMS reply. Apart from displays, because if I am not standing on bus stop, or if I am not near the bus stop, then the only option is to have access to your mobile, and that is SMS reply. If you are near the bus stop or on the bus stop, then bus stop displays are there, so you can find out at what time your next bus is coming. So these are the only technological two solutions which I can see. People, those who are in technology, may be able to give you more insight. For smartphone, there are multiple options, but without smartphone, I mean, these are the only two options I could see.
Mr. Bothra, your take on this, please.
Nothing to add. I think SMS, I will go with the SMS. I think
I think a higher frequency will also serve to reduce the requirement of active ETA systems. Of course, you should have an active ETA system, but if it is not possible, a decently high frequency reduces the requirement, the dependence of commuters on an active ETA system.
On certain route, yes. I mean, certain routes, certainly higher frequency is the only option, even if you have good number of people traveling on that route. But in city, there are several routes wherein you will not get that kind of load factor for higher frequency. So they are probably.
Mr. Paulos, any ideas to add to these suggestions?
Yeah, I would add the same thing, and paper-based systems we should not be fully avoiding. Mobile phones with SMS, and the frequency is an important aspect, I feel. Thank you.
The next question we go to, this again is to all the panelists. How to maintain sustainability in conditions that prevail now, with mobility as solution being the overarching framework or idea?
I believe for sustainability, first thing which is required is financial support and budgeting. Second is better infrastructure. So as I said, unless you have good NMT and footpath network, people will not even walk up to bus stop. So integrated door-to-door service is the solution to make it more sustainable and backed by financial support. Of course, before everything comes planning, and that is also very, very important.
Okay, we go to the next question. If we keep higher parking charges, does
Mr. Sarkar, if I can interrupt you here.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I don't know if that question was specific about pandemic situations, because this is the time when the companies are really bleeding, as you mentioned earlier also in your opening remarks. So there I would like to mention, because right now we are going through that phase and it is still not over. What I can suggest that it is very important to gain and regain the trust of the customer, because people have this fear, apprehension that the buses are not safe to travel. So I will put it in two ways. One is, it is very important that you really do the sanitization, and like for example, we have ensured this no mask, no standing, digital payment, going for the digital payments as much as possible. We have only 3 days ago, we have started our tap and pay card, and of course the regular sanitization. This is part one. But part two, it is very important to communicate to the customer, because if you are doing something and the customer is unaware, then the impact is not as much. So we have like for example, I mentioned in my presentation also, we have a dedicated communication cell, very good, great media presence in social media as well as regular media, electronic media also, where we communicate to the people that this is what we are doing through videos and all. And I'm happy to share in this last 30 seconds, I'm happy to share that we are gaining our customership, our riders back, and it is a very fast and steady growth. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bothra. There's this one question for Mr. Paulos, a quick question. We are left with barely 5 minutes. Now, the question is, if the parking charges are raised, won't that also push people to, does it somewhere give boost to on-street parking?
Yeah, can I go?
No, yeah, obviously the assumption is that the paid parking will be off-street. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, please. Okay, thank you. The point is, we need to have a comprehensive parking management plan, and there should be price harmonization. When we say about changing parking, there should be a difference between the on-street parking and multi-level or other off-street parking options. If we look into the systems, Delhi is one of the best examples for that. Sarojini Nagar Parking Plaza has close to 800 ECS, but immediately vicinity you provide parking for free. So it is for the cities to decide a city-wide parking management plan, parking precincts delineated based on the trip attractions and characteristics of the land use, and then separate the pricing characteristics between on-street and off-street. It is not a new thing that I am saying. In the past 3 decades, Western Europe has implemented it nicely. And for example, there are municipal corporations, municipal authorities in developed parts of the world. Even for the government employees, they have to pay for parking. Nottingham Municipal Corporation is an example for that. There is something called workplace levy. A government employee who goes to a government or public and semi-public land use has to pay for the parking space that they are using. So it is about how you harmonize between on-street and off-street parking and to differentiate between city center, suburbs and other areas. Thank you.
Thank you. This is for Sandeep. How many cities were considered for the estimated number of buses, and how does it account for and how do you look at narrow streets in cities where the population is below 1 million and which limit the operating space or operating scope for buses? This is a question for Sandeep.
So we had looked at 35 cities, and there were 2 variables that we had looked at. We had looked at the trip length frequency distribution, and we estimated on the basis of the trip length that is in the acceptable range of bus transport, which is basically I think between 6 and 15 kilometers. And the second was what addresses the second part of the question is the second was for smaller cities, less than 1 million, less than 1 lakh, in fact, less than 1 lakh population. In fact, less than 2.5 lakh population. We had looked at cities. We had looked at the road network in the cities, and which cater to, which cater to most of the city. Which cover 90% of the city within 500 meters of walking distance on either side. So basically, that second part, in that second part, we had used Google Earth to look at cities which major streets in the city which can take bus systems, and looking at that network length, we estimated what is the level of service required, and the minimum level of service that we had assumed was 10 minutes. So a headway of 10 minutes. So on the basis of that, we estimated the number of buses required for very small cities. For bigger cities, it was on the basis of triplet frequency distribution.
So, Mr. Sarkar, can I say something here?
Yes, please. We are left with 1 minute.
Yeah, I believe that smaller towns, first preference should be given to building footpaths rather than building roads. People can walk to nearby distances and they don't need even vehicles to be plied. So all interior roads can be better for walking rather than vehicles. So smaller towns, it should start from building good NMT and footpath network.
Thank you, Mr. Patwardhan. Now we are almost at the end of the session. I would like to thank all our panelists. It has been very, very enlightening, and I think we will go home with the hope that now, like many other sessions in the previous years, we have all the knowledge in place. The challenge is implementation, and to think why implementation, why does implementation take time when there is a realization that these are the requirements. So we must think hard. I think there is a communication challenge in terms of the critical decision makers and the implementers being alive to what has to be done. Thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you
very much.
Thank
you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sarkar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sarkar, for moderating the session along with all the presenters. I would also like to extend my thanks for the presenters to present their presentations, from the UMI team. I may request all the presenters and the attendees
नहीं
now
जाऊँ सर
move on to our
जयपुर
next
डिपो
session,
सर हमें कितने
which
देर
is
बंद
a
करें सर
conclave on sustainable mobility during COVID
flown from
scenario.
the depot.
The link for the same has been shared in the chat box along with the event number and the event password. Thank you so much for everybody to join and share their ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.